G'day ladies and gents. It's been a while since I've done any video work or work in the Prefect, so thought I might come out tonight and fill you in on what's been happening and what we're up to. I think in the last video I drilled out these just to get a position, and I've gone to work and I've bent up the plates that are going to replace it. I don't want to do a tube front because I want to keep as much original paneling as like old school cheesy shit as I can, just because, I don't know, there's heaps of space frames out there. Why not keep it cool looking? So I've taken some 3mm plate, folded it at work. That's the same radius as this here, and then that little kickback will happen, and we'll install that and weld it. But I've got a bit sidetracked on that. The coilovers were starting to rust being outside here, so I've unbolted them, and now that I've got the position, I've unbolted them and wanted to focus on the motor and where that's going to sit, etc, etc. So what you see here is the Zephyr motor. That's just a dummy block, and it's in a shit of a spot because we want to mid-mount it, but where the cross member is right underneath the oil pump. So that's the cross member there, and I don't know if you can see down there, but the oil pump goes down that hole there and finishes up right here. So we've taken a notch out of the sump there, and that'll be fabricated. And the next thing is to get the gearbox so I can pinpoint exactly facing angle wise and the right pinion angle and that sort of stuff. So a couple of days ago, Dad and I did a bit of a swap over. We live like 2 hours away from each other, so we did like a sneaky drug deal type situation where we pulled over in a quiet car park and exchanged Zephyr parts. And so here are a couple of things I've got that will be running. Excuse my messy shed. Got here is a Cortina gearbox, except the bell housing is off a Mark II Zephyr, so it will bolt straight up to the engine we're using. This isn't like a clean bolt up. You can see those are the original holes there, and these have been drilled out to fit that bell housing onto the gearbox itself. So I've got that, an oil pump, which at some point will throw away that big mouth on it and reroute the pickup tube to the rear. This is a steering column that I got out of a Escort, which will marry up to the rack. Cross member for the gearbox used to be in a Zephyr, so that's why we're going to use that, but it's for the Cortina gearbox, and a heap of shifters. So with all that stuff, my next job will be bolting up the gearbox and make some engine mounts. That's my next thing I really want to do, is get some engine mounts. Probably a little bit of a mouthful, but that's my chaotic scheme. First things first, we'll get this engine out, bolt it, and go from there. Well, with no crankshaft or clutch or anything in there, that's the easiest gearbox I've ever had to line up. Just a word of advice: be careful when you're wearing your Asian safety boots and doing this stuff. Alright, that's as far back as I can get it, which is way too far forwards, but that's what we expected anyway. So yeah, where it's hitting is the old cross member is hitting on the transfer case of the new gearbox. So we're going to get under there and rip that out, because we won't need it and we'll have to change it. It'll have super old bolts, so I think we're just going to cut it all out. You can see how bashed up it is anyway, so we'll cut that out now and get the motor back a bit further. Look at that! That has been beached on something. Alrighty, we've got the engine in with the gearbox on a bit better now, with the cross member out, and that was absolutely shagged, and the motor still needs to come back another 120mm, so it's still on the transfer casing on the tunnel. So I'm going to take off back to 200 and cut that out, get it into place, and then well, I suppose I really have to cut the whole thing off by the time the gear shift has to be back here. Yeah, that's where we're at. We'll cut that out. See, before you ask, the drive will be sitting back fairly far, and then have a remote extension off the gear shifter. We're back at it again on the Prefect, and today I have got the engine leveler from Total Tools. I was going to get one from Super Cheap, but I waited a little bit longer, and this one's higher rated for the same price, so that's pretty sweet. And I've just got a jack on the back of the gearbox and on the front, and that's the right depth that the engine's sitting, and now this engine leveler's got it all nice. Had to shorten the front two chains because the gearbox is such more weight on the back. And the only thing I'm doing now, I've got the string line. I see if I can show you, but I'll put the string line in the bung of the bottom of the diff so that it's like center of the diff center, and then run it up through the cab and over the motor just to make sure it's in line with all the bores. I've measured it from left to right inside, like from the pillars and stuff like that, but I just wanted that visual check to make sure that they were correlating to each other. So if you can see that in there, and it goes through the shifter and then straight to the back of the diff. So that's all cool. I don't really know what I'm doing, so hopefully that's all good. The only thing I'm waiting on now is I don't have a diff center on me, and I need the diff center to get the measurement, how far forward the yoke is, the pivot point, so I can work out the pinion angle from the motor. So a bit of the old year 8 maths, trim the tan over the angle and whatever, and it looks like I've got to have about a 40mm drop for the 3-degree pinion angle, and apparently that pinion angle is really important, but I'm waiting for Dad to call me back with that number so I can double check that I've got the right number for the measurement. He's taking his goddamn sweet ass time. I've got this shoe thing to weld. It looks like cast. So what I'm gonna do, I've got the TIG with me. I'm just gonna TIG it with stainless wire. He only wants to have it as a show thing in the shed, country boy. So we'll weld that now, and hopefully he calls me back. So Dad's got back to me in the rear diff where the flange goes on to the housing to the front of the uni joint is 266. So I'll just do that little bit of trig on the ground there, and to get the 3-degree pinion, which is a recommended angle, the difference in the output shaft and the diff needs to be 29mm, but I'm a dickhead, and because we live in a rental, I had this chassis all leveled up, and for an inspection we put it back in, and I've got all this ready without leveling the chassis, so now I've got to go back, and I don't trust the concrete, so I'm going to go and get the laser level and level on the bottom of the chassis, then measure up, and then we can do our stuff. So we'll see how we go tomorrow. But anyway, done that. Today I went to work and folded up this special size 30 by 30 by 62 channel for the original cross member, which I don't know if you saw it last night, but I powder coated it black. Looks heaps good. So now I'm just gonna drill some holes, smash it up against the bottom of the floor in its new position, weld some captive nuts on the back of that channel so you can just ugga-dugger it up there, and then we're pretty close to, even though it's all being just only tucked up, we're pretty close to having the engine and gearbox in its position without the engine crane lifting it up. So I'll drill them holes now and show you guys. Well, that's a wrap.